Doctor Who is a staple of British science fiction. I mean, this show has been around forever. It's cheesy and most of the decisions made in recent years have been questionable and have divided fans, but people still watch it for a reason. The show centres around an alien going by the pseudonym The Doctor, who travels through space and time with numerous companions, going on various adventures, defeating human and alien foe alike. There are various recurring villains in the series, the most well-known ones being the Daleks, the Cybermen, and the Master. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing a franchise that was a massive part of my childhood. I have mentioned it in passing before in older videos, but have been avoiding bringing up one specific piece of media from this franchise until now. Wish me luck, everyone. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
As a kid, I loved Doctor Who. Of course, I was first introduced to the reboot series because that's what was airing on television when I watched it, during the late 2000s and early to mid 2010s. At the same time, I wanted to learn everything I could about the show, and some of my relatives told me of the classic series, their incarnation of the Doctor being Tom Baker. I watched all of the classic series, but from the magazines and online research that I was doing, something was missing. That something being the Doctor Who movie. Unfortunately, I wasn't really sure where to find a copy of the film at the time, but by some miracle, it actually ended up airing on TV one weekend. I remember not really knowing what to think of the film after watching it at the time, and thinking that some ideas were good, but not wanting to watch it again. Looking back as I got older, I really enjoyed Paul McGann's performance, and thought his Doctor seemed fun and enthusiastic, but didn't really remember much and thought a lot of it seemed quite cheesy and 90s. I didn't realise, however, how disliked this film actually was until recently. So, I decided to make this video in order to revisit this movie and decide whether all the criticism is really deserved. The movie begins with a narration from the Doctor, who is describing his old enemy, the Master's trial, and execution. It's taking place on Skaro, the Daleks' homeworld, and the Master has apparently made a very odd last request.
He demanded that I, the Doctor, a rival Time Lord, should take his remains back to our home planet, Gallifrey.
And for some reason, they grant this request? You know, I see how this could be seen as totally innocent, and the Master just wanting to be laid to rest at home with the help of a childhood friend, but given how cunning, well, insane he has been shown to be, I wouldn't be so willing to follow through with this request at all. We then get some opening cards with an updated, at least for the 90s, version of the Doctor Who theme song. I will say that while I am more partial to the older versions of the theme song, this doesn't sound too terrible. The Seventh Doctor, who was the last incarnation of the character before the classic series was cancelled in 1989, locks the Master's remains in a special box, sealing it shut with his sonic screwdriver. While he's chilling in the TARDIS, the box explodes, and a substance leaks out, breaking the console and causing the ship to make an emergency landing. I like that we get to see more of the TARDIS in this movie, and that the Doctor has a proper living room because, with a few exceptions, we generally only get to see the console room. While it is implied that the TARDIS is huge and has many, many rooms, actually seeing some of it makes the ship seem more homey, and something you would actually want to live in, even for an alien. Meanwhile, in 1999 San Francisco, there is a shooting between some gangs. The TARDIS lands and the Doctor is shot by several gang members, and a young man named Chang Li calls the doctor an ambulance. Unfortunately, he isn't able to understand the doctor's panicked warnings about the gunk sliding from the TARDIS. A young cardiologist named Grace Holloway tries to operate on the doctor, as the hospital staff are confused by his unusual anatomy, which interrupts a date she was on. The doctor wakes up on the operating table, tries to warn the surgeons again, but because they don't listen when he says he isn't human, they mess up and he dies on the operating table. Chang Li then steals the doctor's belongings and scarpers upon hearing the news. What a disgrace! The doctor's supposed corpse is taken to the morgue, but as we all know, the doctor can regenerate. Once in the freezer, he does so, and the CGI here looks pretty awful. One of the morgue staff is watching Frankenstein, and they do some funny cuts between the film and the doctor though. Elsewhere, the slime from earlier takes the form of a snake and possesses the body of the ambulance driver from earlier while he is sleeping. The doctor, confused and high on regeneration energy, breaks his way out of the morgue before we get some weird edit between him and the master. I don't know what's going on here, guys. So, our favourite two-hearted alien steals some clothes intended for a fancy dress party, a trick that the doctor has used a few times before. Starting with the third, we get some bizarre horror movie shit with the ambulance driver's wife when the master kills her and reveals that he intends on stealing the doctor's body.
Master will do.
Well, come back to bed, Master.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, I didn't get this line back in the day. Grace's boss destroys the evidence of the doctor's arrival and death at the hospital to avoid any kind of legal trouble or bad press, although Grace objects to this as she believes that they could learn from the now missing patient and quits. In an elevator, the doctor recognizes Grace and tries to recall things that he remembers from the night before, to try to get her to help him recollect who he is. Of course, as he looks completely different to the man she'd operated on, she just assumes he's mentally ill. But when he pulls out the probe used in the operation, she realizes that somehow this man is the same man from before. Master shows up at the hospital looking for the doctor, and for some reason is doing a Terminator impersonation. Like, I'm sorry, I get that the doctor is meant to be a weird guy, but this is a whole new kinda weird. This is the master, this is the master, and okay, even this is the master. But this is not the master. The doctor and Grace do some bonding as she finally manages to grasp that the doctor literally has two hearts, although she doesn't quite believe that he can regenerate. At the same time, Chang Li breaks into the TARDIS with the key he stole from the doctor's belongings, and somehow the master is in there? I get that he's a shifty guy, but there should be some explanation as to how he managed to do that. He uses mind control on Chang Li, which is an ability he's had since his very first appearance, so I'm not mad about it. He tells Chang Li that the doctor has stolen his body, and that he needs to get it back by telling him a bunch of ridiculous lies.
Genghis Khan?
What about him?
That was him.
No way.
Yes way.
That line was actually pretty funny, so point to you, movie. In the heart of the TARDIS is the so-called Eye of Harmony, which requires a human retinal scan to open. I get that this is a TV movie, but that shot looks totally ridiculous and fake. The holograms aren't so bad though. After recounting some childhood memories while on a walk with Grace, the doctor recovers from his amnesia and is apparently psychically connected to the TARDIS somehow through the Eye of Harmony. He and the Master have some quirky tricks up their sleeves, but this is kinda getting into magical territory. Unfortunately, the Doctor realizes that the Master intends on having him look into the Eye of Harmony, so that he can steal his body and his remaining regenerations. Not only that, but if the eye remains open while the timing mechanism on the TARDIS is broken, Earth could be destroyed by midnight. In order to fix the timing mechanism, the Doctor needs to find an atomic clock, but Grace gets freaked out by all this new information and runs away. He tries to calm her down by talking through her letterbox, and we get another funny line.
Sure, Time Lord to Earthling.
Yes, that's right, I am a Time Lord.
Well, I thought you were a doctor.
So you're a doctor!
Grace insists that she needs to call an ambulance as she thinks the doctor is insane again, and this part has always bothered me. I get that finding out that someone is an alien is a bit much, but he has shown undeniable evidence that he is the same man that you thought you killed during heart surgery, and he has 2 hearts. I mean, surely him being an alien wouldn't be the most ridiculous explanation? And you kissed him earlier. Twice! Have some faith, lady! She actually does call an ambulance from the psychiatric unit, something the Master overhears through the Eye of Harmony, and since he's in the body of the ambulance driver, he can just show up to the scene, I guess. While waiting, they see a news broadcast about an atomic clock on display at the San Francisco Institute of Technological Advancement and Research. As the Doctor doesn't recognize the Master when he arrives, he gets in the ambulance with Grace, but on the way there, the Doctor realizes the mess they're in, and he and Grace steal an officer's motorcycle after distracting him.
Now would you stand aside before I shoot myself?
Don't be a fool.
You with me, Grace?
We don't stand a chance.
This is supposed to be a fair review, so I will keep pointing out when there are parts that I actually like. This includes the very cheesy banter between Grace and the Doctor during their journey.
He likes me to call him Doctor. You know, Freud had a name for that.
Transference.
That's very witty, Grace. At least Freud would have taken me seriously.
He'd have hung up his pipe if he'd met you.
Actually, we did meet.
At the Institute, the Doctor pickpockets some guy in order to steal his pass to the atomic clock, and they also manage to evade the Master and Chang Li after successfully stealing it.
The universe hangs by such a delicate thread of coincidences, it's useless to meddle with it, unless like me you're a Time Lord.
Sounds a lot like this film's storyline, to be honest. They make it back to the TARDIS, but are being pursued by police. For all its flaws, when it gets funny stuff right, it gets it right. The eye has been opened for too long, unfortunately, and so the Doctor must travel back in time to before it was opened. This is where I remember the movie starting to lose me as a kid. It just feels a bit contrived, like another bit of conflict to stretch out the movie. They could have made getting the atomic clock more difficult or something. The Doctor starts to recircuit the TARDIS to be able to use the eye's energy to complete his mission, but the Master possesses Grace somehow and she knocks him out. When the Doctor comes to, the Master arrives in full Time Lord regalia. Total, utter, obvious fan service. As Grace puts the body switching whatchamajigger on the Doctor, we get a horrible cut to a Y2K New Year's Eve party. I get the point of it being there, I just wish it wasn't edited in so jarringly. The Master does some evil villain monologue, and I'm sorry, I know that this is supposed to be really dramatic and all, but this scene just looks like the Doctor is about to get his eyes tested at some kind of really twisted opticians. During his monologue though, the Master reveals his lies, and when Chang Li now refuses to open the eye, the Master kills him. He instead uses Grace to open the eye, and begins to steal the Doctor's life force. There isn't much I can add other than repeating my previous points about it being weirdly edited, and the 90s CGI effects being awful. Grace manages to escape to the console room, and finishes recircuiting the TARDIS, succeeding through sheer luck as she has obviously never done this before, and the Doctor isn't there to offer guidance. This puts the TARDIS in temporal orbit, and she goes to free the Doctor, but the Master throws her off the ledge to her death. The Doctor kicks the Master away and frees himself. All that rubbish for nothing. The Master and Doctor fight, and the Master is pulled into the Eye of Harmony. Time reverts a few minutes, meaning Grace and Chang Li are now still alive. He shows them where Gallifrey is from Earth, and warns Chang Li to take a vacation at the same time next year. Before the film ends, he offers to take Grace with him, but instead she kisses him goodbye, and the film ends with the Doctor travelling alone once more. I don't hate this movie, but it's not good. It's disappointing. I can see why I only watched it once and never got back to it. The effects are so dated, a lot of the plot is flimsy, and the editing choices are so dubious throughout. I can see why it was panned by critics and fans alike at the time, and even more so now. I was also disappointed that we didn't get a little bit more of Sylvester McCoy on screen, but I understand that the Eighth Doctor was supposed to be the focus of the story. Chang Lee's character just feels so unnecessary, and is so frustrating though. You could blame it on the mind control, but in older episodes, a lot of the Master's mind control victims seem to have some agency, and even tried to fight back. Lee just comes across like a total idiot. A lot of aspects of this movie are good though, which is sadly part of what makes it a bit of a letdown, especially as a Who fan. The design of the TARDIS console looks amazing, and a lot of the practical effects aren't half bad, especially for a TV movie. Like I said earlier, I liked a lot of the more humorous moments, like the banter between the Doctor and Grace in the ambulance, or the Frankenstein homage. It's such a shame that they weren't used in a better movie. On that note, I also like the references to previous Doctor incarnations, but I feel like they used the Jelly Baby bit one too many times. I get that everyone loves Fourth, but that was his thing, there's no need to do it a million times. You can tell that Paul McGann is really giving it his all as number 8. He's playing the Doctor with this childlike whimsy, a classic quality that makes the Doctor very fun to watch on screen. I do like his performance generally speaking, but some lines are so melodramatic that I can't take him seriously.
He's planning to take my body so that he will live and I will die. Oh, no!
In a Bleeding Cool article comparing this film to the 2005 reboot series, a criticism I found about this movie was that it especially didn't appeal to newcomers. I understand how this could be an issue, especially as this film intended to do what the 2005 reboot series succeeded in, updating the show for a newer demographic. The amount of references to and reliance on the lengthy canon of the classic series kind of makes me question this though. You would need to do both, but now I'm not really sure what the purpose of this was. I originally assumed that it was kind of like a love letter to the original series. Craziest of all, apparently Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame was supposed to direct this film. Another article I found while doing research for this video detailed how Mr. Spock himself was apparently offered the job, but Fox scrapped the idea for fear of it coming across as too gimmicky. I wonder how it would have turned out if Nimoy did direct it though. Well, that's all for this video. Have any of you guys seen this film? If so, what did you think of it? Do you think it being panned was deserved? Be sure to follow me on social media as they are all linked in my description box. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and to leave your thoughts in the comments down below as well. And as always, thanks for watching.
Nothing like a polo to ease my mind. With polos by my side, I'll always shine. The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time. Cause polos is life, 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 polos is life. Sleep all night.